It's been a while since I've checked on these. It's been 3 weeks. And I'm kind of short on time. I actually came out for a swarm. Oh, a scorpion. Lovely. See that scorpion? I need to take care of him before he actually takes care of me. Well, I think I did take care of that scorpion and proceeded to go on with the hive inspection. And you'll notice that I'm tapping on these bars, and I'm tapping on these bars because it tells me whether the bar is occupied or not. If it sounds hollow, it generally is not occupied. If it sounds like a very dense thud, that means it's occupied. So I kind of get an idea pretty quick where the hive actually is. Now this is not a good day to do an inspection. If you notice that the wind noise is pretty bad, I chose to go ahead and inspect while I was out there. And this is not a good idea because bees, being bees, they do not like windy days, they do not like overcast days, and they do not like days where there is atmospheric change and there is a storm coming. But I was there. Right, sometimes a bar of honey. Sometimes sometimes you just have to do an inspection when you have the time. Now I'm constantly using smoke during this inspection because the bees are probably a little testy. And this inspection, by the way, was done sometime in May of 2011. Now 2011 in Texas was the bad drought year. The worst drought probably since the Great Depression for my county. I started out with about 11 hives, and I finished out the year with 3 hives. So I had about 75–85% loss. But that's just the way it goes sometimes. And I do a lot of swarm trapping, so I'll have a lot more hives next year than I will this year. Now this hive actually did fairly well in spite of the drought, so I went ahead and inspected it. And you'll notice the way I'm holding the combs and how dense the combs are covered with bees, that the hive is doing fairly well considering the circumstances. Under normal circumstances, I'd say it's a little light on reserves, both honey and pollen, but it did okay. At this point, I'm just looking to see if I can spy any eggs, and if I can spy little tiny eggs in those cells, that means I've got a queen sometime in the last 3 to 4 days, in which case I'm queen right. Now I'm not really too worried about losing a queen. I just check every time I do open up a hive. And you'll also notice that this video was shot, if I recall, May of 2011, that I have just recently washed my bee suit, which is a very rare occasion in my beekeeping career. I might wash that suit every few years, and it gets pretty grubby after a while, which is, I guess, good and bad. The good thing is it keeps a lot of smoke smell, which keeps the bees off of me, but it can be pretty hard to get it white. It's been a fairly good suit. You'll notice it's a little bit, the hat is a little too tall, so I have to cinch it up a little bit so it doesn't fall over my ears. And also that black screen on my suit needs to be replaced every few years because I scratch it up when I'm doing cutouts. Something grabs it, and usually I tear the veil a little bit and I sew it up, and I tear the veil again a few months later and I sew it up, and eventually I've got a whole bunch of tears that have been sewn up. So I just give up and I just rip out the whole veil and just replace it. And it's just window screen. That's all it is. So if you ever need to make a very simple veil, you can make a simple veil out of a box and window screen. Not terribly difficult. Now my smoker, I do like this smoker. It's got a heat protection cage and it's got a nice bright yellow handle, which whenever you look up and you're looking for your smoker, if you've left it around, that bright yellow does stick out.
Well, they're not really just blowing at the gills.
That's right, they're not. It's been a drought year. And while I'm doing inspections, I tend to re-smoke my hands throughout the inspection, and that just keeps them off my hands whenever they get testy and aggressive. It's always a good idea to smoke your hands before an inspection and once in a while during an inspection if you're doing multiple hives. And if you're ever opening up a hive during a non-optimal time, that means a storm's coming or it's an overcast day or there's some wind, you'll want to smoke your hands more often than once because the guard bees will pop out and they might just try to sting you right there.
That's all honey in the middle of the hive.
Yeah, but the clue on that is that that bar was not completely built out. It had honey in it, but it was not a complete bar. So that means the honey flow, whatever little we had, stopped abruptly. And some people don't understand honey flow, what it is, what it means. If you have blooms, you might have honey. People don't realize that flowers can bloom and have no nectar in the flower because the plant moisture content is too low to generate nectar. So you might look around and think, wow, look at this great field we have of gaillardia, which is Indian paintbrush, Indian blanket, correction. But gaillardia, if it doesn't have any ground moisture, can't pull water out of the ground to make nectar. So you'll have blooms, but there's no honey there. So your bees might be bringing in pollen, which doesn't need much moisture, but they won't
expand.
But they won't be bringing in honey. So you've got to be very careful.
Expanding much.
Yeah, they're not expanding because the darn bees are starving.
All right, it's been dearth. They've had a bad time.
That's correct. So pretty soon I'm just going to wrap this up. I've seen enough. All I really want to know is if I've got a queen and if I've got resources. And I saw that I had some eggs, and I saw I had some honey, enough for the time being, and I had pollen. So there's really no reason to continue digging into this hive. And that's what most inspections are about. Do you have honey? Do you have eggs? Are you okay? And if you notice, I think my smoker...
Close it up.
It's a good idea. Close it up, shut it down, move on.
These girls are just surviving.
Yep.
I'm going to close it up.
Oh yeah, and if you like my beekeeping videos, by all means, click the subscribe button, and you'll find out whenever I put out a new video. Have fun!